Oh, you know what I love?
Sports.
I love sports.
Sports.
When it comes to
Texas A&M.
Where are you getting this information?
Let me tell you.
Welcome to TexAgs.
TexAgs Live.
I feel like I should be listening to the theme song from the Jeffersons. You know, we're moving on up.
We will develop men, we will graduate players, and we will win championships on the field.
The best way for us to win is to do it together.
He is a guy that has gotten better and better and better. He's just got that dog in him.
It's been special. The 12th man this past week was unbelievable.
100%. Ready to go. It's been a long time coming, and I just can't wait to be out there.
That's why I play football in the SEC, trying to go get it done.
You know, if I'm betting on anybody, it's the Aggies.
TexAgs Live presented. What?
You're on, David. Hey, good morning.
Oh,
How are you?
Good morning. I thought you guys interrupted me. Welcome into TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio Go Hour, presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. If you're wondering why I'm at home, well, let's just say it was a rough weekend of partying with Olin Buchanan there in Tampa, Florida, and of course Gainesville. OB, good morning, my friend.
Good morning, David. Hey, it was a rough weekend of weather and delays at the game and keeping us in Gainesville much longer than we needed to be. But on Friday night, I probably did have one of the top 10 dinners in my life.
Well, we'll get into this whole situation in a second, but let's talk about that dominant performance because Olin, to me, A&M goes to Gainesville, and they did something we have not seen in a while.
When?
Which was not only win the game, well, there's a couple of things they hadn't done in a while. Went on the road.
Yeah.
Win against a team you should beat, right? Like, these are all things that for a while, I don't want to say we took for granted, but we didn't know if they would happen, right? Like, they should beat Bowling. Like, right now, I'm not worried about Bowling Green. I understand why people are worried. No. If you're the team I think you are, you take care of the teams you're supposed to beat, and you compete against the ones you're not supposed to beat, okay? And the Notre Dame game aside, the rest of the way, that's at least how I feel today. We'll see how the season plays out.
It'll change by the end of the week.
Well, it sometimes changes by the second, right? But right now, beat the teams you're supposed to, and that's what they did this past week in Olin.
They did. They were favored to beat Florida. They went out and won, and I thought controlled the game. I think it was going to be a dominant victory, an absolute dominant victory, if the weather hadn't have forced almost an hour game delay. And the reason why, it was kind of hot. It was very hot and muggy, and A&M had controlled that first quarter, and the Florida defense has been out on the field for already 12 minutes. And, you know, they have defensive issues anyway, and I'm thinking it's going to be they're going to beat these guys down. They're going to be tired, and I'm looking for A&M to just control the game. And then they got a break with that long weather delay, kind of changed the temperature, and it was like a reprieve for Florida. Now, it wasn't enough, obviously, and A&M did win, by 13 points, and it wasn't that close. But I think it was going to look like an absolute, complete blowout if it had not been for that weather break.
They control both sides of the line, right? They control the line of scrimmage. They made big plays. They made a defensive. They give you a non-offensive score. They did so many different things that we've been waiting for a long time. And outside of the penalties, and we'll get into the penalties here in a minute, they look like a very well-coached team. They had some dumb penalties throughout the game, but this looked like a team that is coached well, that was ready for the moment. And I know some people were disappointed that they didn't, step on the throats. I do think they stepped on the throats of Florida. They just managed the game the rest of the way.
Yeah, I do think they managed the game. I was impressed with the play calling because why? If the running is working for you and you're dominating the line of scrimmage, why get away from it? And they just ran the football. Maybe had they thrown more, they had an opportunity to to win by a wider margin. I'd like to see the secondary tighten some things up a little bit. But I never felt like they were going to lose the game, especially after they got up 20-0. But really, as soon as Marcel Reed made a couple of plays, and I'm sure he was getting confidence, and all Aggies were getting more confidence in him, I really never thought they would lose.
Yeah. Let's go over some of the things we wanted to see over the weekend. And there's a couple I got right, a couple I didn't get wrong. All right, okay? 3 things I wanted to see on Friday. I wanted to see Connor play. Well, I didn't get that right. We saw Marcel play, and he exceeded all expectations. I know his dad, Rod, is probably saying, I knew he was going to do this, right? As a good dad should. And he's seen him at his very best. Marcel played fantastic. We as Aggies should be proud of that young man, and I know his family is. I wanted to see a fast start followed by a quick shutdown to the quarterback, whoever that was. If it was going to be Mertz or Lagway. We got that. I wanted to see a non-offensive touchdown. Did we get that, Obi?
We got it. Love to see interceptions.
I also said on our bank on it for Le'Veon Moss, and this is my exact words. I wanted Le'Veon Moss to lead the rushing with 110 yards rushing. Is that exactly what he gave us?
I believe that's exactly what you got, Nostra David.
So I'm just saying, sometimes I know what I'm saying, sometimes I don't.
Yeah, offensive line played great. Le'Veon Moss ran hard. There were times it looked like he was stopped and they just couldn't get him down, and he just kept going. Same for Amari Daniels. Marcel Reed played way above expectations. The defense, the run defense was exceptional. The pass defense, they can do better. I don't know that other than some coverage. And let's face it, Florida has some pretty good receivers. And we talked about Mertz. Productivity in the passing game has never been the issue for Mertz. It's the tendency to throw interceptions, and you got one. You got 3, but I don't think they were all on Mertz. In fact, I know one of them wasn't. So it shouldn't be that alarming that they had some success in the passing game, but I still would like to see A&M cover number 17 a little better.
Lagway had 2 picks, and the pick 6, though, was credited to Graham Mertz because he was the quarterback. By the way, just the overall rushing attack, overall, I know we talked Le'Veon Moss, but Amari Daniels ran so well. And, of course, Marcel Reed ran so well. And E.J. Smith had his moments as well. Do you remember, I forget what drive it was. Maybe it was a 99-yard drive, by the way, which was fantastic. Or maybe it was a 92-yard drive. But I remember they were running every play. And I said to you, maybe now we run. And you're like, no, keep it going. I mean, maybe now we pass. No, keep running it down their freaking throats. And that's what they did.
Yeah, that was a 99-yard drive when I think it was 15 plays, maybe 16 plays, and 15 of them were runs. And I think they threw a 2-yard pass and went right back to the run. And, why not? If it's working, and nothing demoralizes a defense. Some people say they'll really demoralize the defense the most is like when you cover a play perfectly and then the quarterback takes off and runs. But when you just keep running at a defense and there's nothing they can do to stop it, I think that's really crushes an opposing defense's spirit.
So let me just address the situation here. I apologize early on if the show at times seems a bit unprofessional. I am at my house doing the show. I have 2 puppies. They're about, 9 months old, and they're high maintenance. And I didn't think about that earlier. So if you hear whining in the background right now, they're chilling, sleeping, they're great. But I just know how they are. At some point, if they bark, I apologize. I am home because, Opie, how do we describe this? I guess during the show Friday, I started feeling not my best, right? I had sniffles on Thursday, but I felt like they were allergies. You were with me all weekend long, unfortunately. Unfortunately, because I'm not great company, and also because I was sick. How would you describe how I felt over the weekend?
Well, you were under the weather, and sometimes the weather, like in Florida, like at the game, sometimes the weather got worse. And then sometimes it would clear up a little bit, but then it was going, unpredictable.
Yeah, I I joked with Bronny, this was my Jordan flu game because I was trying to work at a high level. And I think I felt okay until after the game, like okay-ish. And then the shivers came in and I was like, uh-oh, this is not good. So I am home just so I don't get everybody sick. I didn't do the luchador yesterday. So apologies again for not doing the show from the studio. But I want to make sure that I don't get Billy, the crew, OB, everybody sick. So that's why I am home. This is Coffee Talk, by the way, presented by TexAgs Coffee. Beat the hell out of the mornings by going to texags.com/coffee. OB, what texture should we give a free bag of TexAgs coffee to?
Yeah, I think we got to go for number 10.
Okay.
Because, number 10 was pretty spectacular on Saturday.
Well, let's do that.
That would be
Texture
Marcel
number
Reed.
10 to 979-693-1150. Text us with the word coffee. We're going to hook you up with a free bag of TexAgs coffee. Let's go around the room and say hi to the people. We go behind the glass. We say hi to the great Nick Savage. Nick, good morning, buddy.
Howdy, good morning, y'all.
What's up, buddy?
Well, it was, such a great sight to see, getting that road win after so long. Again, the best stat out of all of this is you can throw away that 1,000 whatever day streak it was where they hadn't won a road game. So it's good to see. Like y'all have been saying, it felt like it could have been way more than the 13-point spread. It just kind of, it was a game that just kept dragging on and on, as y'all know. Y'all were there. So, but I love what I saw out of Marcel Reed and the entire team. And, I'm expecting another win against Bowling Green later this week.
Yeah, and by the way, Obi, when I say that I'm not worried about Bowling Green, I hope that's not words that are going to come bite me later and become a meme or a soundbite on Twitter. My point is, I expected when they hired Mike Elko, and I now fully expect it, that the games that we're supposed to win, we're going to win. Okay? And I think we're supposed to beat Bowling Green. I think you beat everybody who comes to Kyle Field. That's the way it should be. And I know there's Texas is the number one team in the country in the poll, and you've got, LSU's always going to be a tough matchup. Overall, the teams you're supposed to beat, you beat, and I think you're supposed to beat Bowling Green.
Bowling Green almost beat Penn State. Northern Illinois says hello. So I agree you're supposed to beat Bowling Green. It doesn't always come out the way it's supposed to, as we learned when Appalachian State came to town. So I am going to, and I know you will too, I am going to respect Bowling Green because of, again, they almost beat Penn State. But I'm going to go in confident, feeling like this is a good team getting better for Texas A&M.
Hey, before we check in with Luke, I want to read this, and I know that it was, not a popular comment, if you will, on the YouTube page. It is what it is. Get over it. Terrible team. Okay, I just want to kind of evaluate that comment. How do you get over it? So let me just ask, it is what it is. Do we not reference what just happened? I'm trying to understand what that means. Are we overrating a victory? No. Did A&M do what they were supposed to do? Go win on the road against a team that is vulnerable and is hurting? I don't understand what it means to get over it. Can you help me, OB, understand that?
I would think, first of all, any win, especially on the road in the SEC, is a good win. Just ask Georgia, right? So, if we were going to say this win at Florida establishes Texas A&M as a SEC championship contender, I'd say tap the brakes. This Florida team has its issues and it wants to fire their coach. So it's a building block. You got over the road. You beat a team that absolutely had to win. And I'm sure put everything they had into trying to win that game, even more than usual, trying to save face and couldn't do it. Now, A&M has to continue to build on that. It's a good win, no doubt about it. It's not this. We're not talking about trying to call UMass beating UMass at Kyle Field by 17 points a great win. We're not doing that. We're just saying this is a good win to go on the road with your backup quarterback. You've had 10 straight losses on the road, and you go in and control your opponent that had to win. That's a good win, but it doesn't establish you as a power, and you didn't say that. But you're never going to apologize for
this is how I know people
touchdown win
are
on the
stupid,
road.
OB. People are stupid, right? Because they don't comprehend commentary. They automatically jump to these levels. So it is what it is. Also says I'm getting too excited over beating a terrible Florida team. You just said it yourself. Backup quarterback haven't won on the road in forever. No. What I have said from the beginning of this segment, and it is what it is, please never listen again. You're allowed to go away. I don't want you to listen anymore. In fact, blocked. They did what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to beat a vulnerable Florida team. Am I saying they're going to beat Texas or Oklahoma? Well, I know that's not on their schedule. No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is I believe Mike Elko has arrived to beat the teams they're supposed to beat. That's what I'm saying.
And I said,
and I hope that continues.
And I said, they're a good team getting better.
Yep, exactly. All right. Let's go and go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. I believe, because I can't see the studio at the moment, Luke Evangelist is chilling out there. Luke, good morning.
Wait, but Luke also goes by the Twitter handle, It Is What It Is.
Yeah, sorry, David. That was me making those comments. I'm actually pretty happy this morning for three reasons. I'll tell you the first one. I felt personally responsible for that road losing streak. When they put the graphic up on the screen, my memory was slowly being jogged of, wow, I was at that game. I was at that game. I was at that game. And I felt a lot of weight on my shoulders for this road losing streak. So to everyone, you're welcome for me not being there and A&M finally getting over the hump. 2, shout out to Kay Naegeli for getting just absolutely destroyed by my fantasy football team this week. It just always feels good to be a winner. And also she had to watch the Dallas Cowboys just get obliterated once again. So I'm happy because Kay is not. And then 3rd, I'm happy because A&M's offensive line dominated. 209 of A&M's 310 yards on the ground were after contact. Le'Veon Moss, 83 of his 110. Amari Daniels, 58 of his 68 yards after contact. Trey Zune, Crownover, and Fothery did not give up a single pressure on all their pass blocking assignments.
OB, that offensive line, man, like, now it is what it is. Can tell me I'm overreacting. But I think after watching such a bad offensive line for so long, to see pretty darn good offensive line, it just makes me happy. Like, they are winning the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, they did it against Florida, but they're good and getting better. And they were very physical in that game. They took the fight straight to Florida. Like you said, they did what a good offensive line is supposed to do. Now, I don't know when they're going to face a defensive front that's considered, I don't even say elite, but really good. Maybe Missouri, maybe Arkansas, maybe Bowling Green for that matter. I haven't done enough research yet on Bowling Green, but it's obviously improved and probably hasn't maxed out on its improvement. Probably see it continue to get better.
Any text you want to provide, Luke, before we hit a break?
Yeah, how about Madden? Madden in Houston sending in a text. The secondary has some things they need to clean up. I believe if Florida kept Mertz in the entire game, they would have had a chance to make it much closer.
Maybe. I will say this. I think if Mertz had played the whole game, eventually the pass rush would have been a better, more of a factor for A&M. He can't elude the pass rush the way DJ can, even though they got to DJ. Remember, there's one where I think it was a 15-yard sack when he tripped up and got him. But I will say this, Mertz showed why he was the starting quarterback for Florida. And I think Billy Napier made a big mistake, and A&M was happy about it by shuttling in the quarterbacks from series to series. When Mertz started making some plays, I would have thought that they would have stuck with him, but they went back to DJ and ride with the hot hand. But DJ ended up getting a touchdown pass too.
Look, the first half to me is A&M's defense did not allow Florida to do anything. Well, how many yards did they have? 36 yards? It was something to that effect.
I think at halftime rushing they had well, you know what? I have those. I had those numbers written down. Total offense in the first half for Florida was 73 yards of total offense.
73. There you go. Okay. Let's hit a break here. When we come back on TexAgs Live, we're going to go to the turning point, and I want to get OB's thoughts on that. Right now, we're talking Prize Picks. I haven't checked because I haven't been on my phone very much. In fact, poor Nick didn't know if I was doing the show until about 7:51 when I finally got on the Zoom. But Prize Picks, by the way, like you have a chance to make some money by just enjoying daily fantasy sports. They are the best. Sign up today and get $50 when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It is guaranteed. Go to prizepicks.com/TexAgs. Use the code TexAgs to receive those $50 once you play those $5. Prize Picks is an independently owned daily fantasy sports platform. It's the biggest in North America. They're the easiest, most exciting way to play DFS. It's you against the numbers instead of battling thousands of other players, including the pros and sharks. You pick more than or less than 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings come in. And if you watch the Texans-Bears game last night, you can see Caleb Williams throw for at least 1 passing yard. And in the month of September, as long as he throws for a passing yard, you get 1 W, 1 automatic win every weekend in September, 4 weeks of free Ws, as long as he's playing, obviously, right? So go to prizepicks.com/TexAgs. Use the code TexAgs to receive that $50 once you play $5. In lineups, it's Prize Picks. Welcome back in. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner Jewelers in the Rollo Insurance Studio. Here's the Go Hour, presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. If you call the show, we'll pick it up on the Boss Firearms Hotline, 979-693-1150. So several texts coming in. One of the ones that let me see if I can find it again. Jerry says, good morning, guys. I'll tell you something. Anytime you go beat Florida and beat Florida the way you did is a great win. I don't care what the problems are, that Florida was blah, 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 blah. They still have great athletes, and that was a great win. Give credit to Marcel Reed, should be the starter. There's going to be a lot of conversation about that. And I'm not there yet. By the way, this is not a reflection of Marcel Reed. I think what I take away from what I've seen is A&M's got three capable quarterbacks. Because Jalen Henderson did a nice job last year. Marcel Reed's doing a fantastic job. The two times we've seen him play, he's played at an elite level, right? What he did against Oklahoma State, what he did against Florida. And I think Connor can still be an elite quarterback. That's how I feel. Like I want to see him play. I want him to be healthy, and I want him to make the plays that we know he can make. But I still think Connor can be elite.
Yeah. But so can Marcel Reed. What I would do is I would play Marcel Reed, especially this week, while Connor heals. And if there's any question at all about Connor, I would continue to play Marcel, especially if, let's say Marcel goes out and plays great against Bowling Green. That's no slight at Connor if you keep rolling with him. I mean, if your team is playing well, now if he has a step back and then Connor is ready to go, then go with Connor. But as long as Reed's playing well and the offense is playing well, I wouldn't mess with anything that's working.
Another text that came in, Bosa said, morning, guys. I'm proud of the team to break the streak of losing, and I'm proud of how they play. We have a lot to clean up. The penalties over 100 yards. I did not like the fact that our D played soft and let them score. We got to have the mentality to finish up opponents, not give them any hope. If we can score 70, go for it. No mercy. Obi?
I kind of agree with that. I don't like look, I understand it. A&M went to late in the game, went to the three-man rush, playing prevent, making Florida throw underneath with the idea of making them use clock. But when they're getting a 10-yard catch, 11-yard catch, 12-yard catch going out of bounds, you're not losing clock. They're just moving the ball up and down the field. So, look, it worked. So, A&M won. It worked. So, what are we complaining about? But, yeah, I would like just the sadistic jerk in me wanted him to skin those Gators.
Yeah.
Make them into belts.
What's the turning point for you?
The turning point for me, okay, I could say it's the 99-yard drive, but I'm gonna condense it down to one play. And look, A&M has controlled the game. They're up 13-0, but the game is Florida has a chance to get some momentum because they killed a punt at the 1-yard line. So if they can get a stop there, they look to get good field position and they can score and get right back in the game. And, the Aggies quarterback sneak on first down. So they're looking at 2nd and 9, they're at their 2, and they just hand the ball inside to Le'Veon Moss. It looks like it's going to be another 1 or 2 yard game. But no, Le'Veon Moss bounces out to the right, finds a hole, and he just starts rambling downfield. Keith Jackson would have been saying he's rumbling, bumbling, stumbling, and somebody jumps on his back, and he keeps carrying him, and he gets a 22-yard run, maybe 23, whatever, 21, I don't know, but they're down around the 23. They just changed that. They just got A&M out of the hole and added momentum, and right there, that just launched that 99-yard drive for the touchdown. If they don't get that play, there's a good chance A&M's punting, even with Tyler White and that rocket of a leg and that weather, you're looking at Florida feeling like they just did something positive, got the ball at midfield, maybe get back in the game. But Le'Veon Moss, what do we say about Moss? Moss grows in a damp, humid environment, and he just took off and flipped that whole situation, and I think that was the turning point.
Just to be different, the pick six, the game was over, but Florida had hope, right? They had moved the ball. and then bam, you answer immediately. Pick six, and you're like, look, Florida ain't going to score a bunch of points. And not this amount of points in this amount of time left. So I'm going to say the pick six just to be different.
Hey, what a play by Will Lee on that interception. To get his hand in there and deflect it. And here comes, we've talked about that you should get more interceptions because you have better athletes in the secondary. And that ball deflected and just hangs there in the air. It must have looked like a beach ball to Bryce Anderson. It was just, and when he caught it, you're thinking this is going to be a touchdown. He still had 45 yards to go, but it was like knowing, turning on a movie like a James Bond movie. You already know what the plot is and how it's going to end. He catch it, that's a touchdown. The 45 yards in between were irrelevant.
Let's do this. Let's hit a break, OB. We'll come back with Coach Jackie Sherrill here on TexAgs Live. Now, comfort food. Okay, you know where I'm going with this, right?
Yeah, I know where you're going.
Food. A lot of times when people are sick, they want chicken soup, right?
Yeah.
But I don't think chicken soup would fix me right now. I think there's a place that you could go. You actually could do this for me.
Yeah.
And like knock on my door, like, a good friend would do and bring me something.
I would today. I would go to 1775 and I would order up some of that brisket and some of that sausage, maybe even some of that really good chicken and a whole bunch, David, just a whole bunch of that macaroni and queso cheese. I would go out and I would order up that because I know that would not only make you well fed, but I'd make you feel good. But of course, they're not open today, so I can't.
But that's what you would do.
That's what I would do.
A real friend would do. That's what America should do for each other, right? Let's do that. Let's everybody buy other people barbecue from 1775.
Yeah, make America great again. Make barbecue great again. 1775 already has. So
I set you up on that one.
What's that?
We'll play. I set you up on that one. We'll play it.
But yeah,
1775 they're open Thursday through Saturday, 11 a.m. until they're sold out. Online ordering turns off at 10 a.m. 8203 Raymond Stosser Parkway, Suite C, College Station, Texas. 979-492-6241. Check out the website 1775txbbq.com. Welcome back into TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio, the Go Hour, presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. I know many of you have commented, and it sounds like I'm doing the show from my bathroom. I am not. We fixed some mic settings, so hopefully it'll sound a little bit better. Let us know if it does sound bad. All right, let's do this. Let's talk to our good friend Jackie Sherrill, brought to you by our good friends there at Texas Best Homes. You trusted Jackie to lead the Aggies to the Southwest Conference titles. Now trust his son Braxton Sherrill to lead you to the best rates in home loans and refinancing at Texas Best Home Loans. Score better rates and lower fees with Braxton Sherrill at txbesthomeloans.com, an equal housing lender. And with that, we go to the Boss Firearms Hotline. We are joined by the great Jackie Sherrill. Coach Sherrill, good morning. How are you, sir?
Doing great. I think all Aggies are doing much better today.
Much better. So what are your thoughts on this performance? The controlling the line of scrimmage, Marcel Reed playing at a high level, just the overall ending of the road woes.
Well, that's the first win since October 16th, 2021 on the road. So you got to give the coaches, they did a great job of getting the team ready with a new quarterback. But when you look at Marcel Reed, 11 for 17, 178, 2 TDs, and 83 yards rushing, with the TD, so 261 yards. But what's impressive to me is the development of the offensive line. When they drove 99 yards with 0 passes, and that's big for developing the offensive line, and that helps tremendously.
Hey, Coach, this is Olin. I got to ask you this because every coach always gets this question. And I'm sure you've been in this situation. You've got one quarterback that's been very productive, very good, highly acclaimed, and he gets hurt. Another guy steps in and plays great. And then everybody's saying, hey, this is your new guy. So when you're in that kind of situation as a coach, how do you balance that and decide what to do moving forward with a quarterback situation?
Well, that's the decision you have to make because, the quarterback's only one position. So, your whole other 10 players, how do you use all 11 players or 10 plus your quarterback? And which quarterback fits, your offense that you're trying to run, your players, how do the players respond? So, we can go all the way back to Bucky Richardson when we put him in, and he won 86 yards per touchdown to win a game. Then you've got a big decision as a coach, and it doesn't take anything away from, your starting quarterback that all of a sudden got hurt. It's a decision which one fits your players or your players fit your offense. So it's a decision to make, Olin.
Talking to Jackie Sherrill on the Boss Firearms Hotline. Can we talk about the offensive line and the growth there, Jackie? Because for so long, the last 3 years, we just saw a decline. And I feel like we're seeing the rise of the Adam Cushing offensive line.
Well, yes. And regardless of how great of skilled players teams have, and you can even go into pro ball, if you don't have the offensive line or defensive line, if you can't win the game up front, it's very hard to win the game, period. So you get better today with the offenses. You spend so much time in an offensive stance and backing up. Years ago, when we talk about white knuckles, that means you're putting your knuckles in the ground and you're coming off the ball. But, I can remember a game that threw the ball 5 times, had 4 incompletes and 1 interception, did not throw another pass, and won the game handily. Well, that gave the offensive line enough confidence, and all of a sudden they're looking at the offensive coaches the head coach and the quarterback looking at run the ball. We'll win the game. So you got to, tip your hat, because when you go 99 yards and no passes running the football, that's hard to do.
Hey, Coach, speaking of running the football, on the other side of it, A&M entered that game 110th in the country, I think it was, in run defense. And they give up about 50 yards rushing. Montrell Johnson, one of the best, has been one of the better big play backs in the SEC, -7 yards on 7 carries. How do you explain that complete about face in the A&M run defense?
Well, I think the challenge, and it's one of those things where, as a coach, you challenge your players. And I don't care where you go in the SEC. It's hard to go into an opposing stadium, especially the Swamp, and be able to do the things that A&M did. The time of possession, 15 minutes more. And, it's great when you have a running back that goes over 100 yards. And that's, if you could rush the football and with the back, or go over 100 yards with the back, that's a big deal. That's a compliment to your offensive linemen, and they're putting their hats on the right people and making those holes for the backs.
Jackie, I don't want to overrate a victory over Florida, and one person in particular thought I did. Let me ask you this. To me, I feel like A&M should and now has arrived at a point that they're going to win the games that they're supposed to, because the last few years, that wasn't a guarantee. And I'm not saying it's a guarantee in today's college football environment, but I feel like A&M has graduated at least to that level of thinking, like, if you're supposed to win, they're going to find a way to win the game that they're supposed to win.
Well, that's the middle part that you're teaching the players. It's a culture that you have. We can go back to the game this past weekend in Kentucky and Georgia. Georgia found a way to win. So the middle things that you give the players and the players themselves develop, those offensive linemen today feel a lot better than they felt a couple of weeks ago. So, you got to tip your hat to the coaches. Did a great job, and the offensive challenge that the offensive line had, and the same thing with the defensive line. And that in itself gives a chance for us to move forward. Now, in saying that, we have a team coming in this weekend that because of all the pats on the back, and everybody is excited, and all the students are excited, patting the players when they go to class, and every week is a challenge. And this week coming up is anybody can beat anybody at any time. So the mental preparation, the challenge that the players have to be the same as last week. And each week it gets more and more, because it's the next game. We have to play the next game, and we hear it all the time. People think it's just a cliche, but the next play, the next game, it doesn't matter today what we did in Florida. What matters is getting prepared to what you'll do this coming Saturday.
Coach, what impressed you the most that you saw from Marcel Reed in that game?
His he was very comfortable. You didn't see him panic. You didn't see him get rattled. He was very comfortable. Now, that means that the coaches did a great job of preparing him and calling the plays that he could execute. Now, don't take away any of his ability now, because, the young man has the ability. But, sometimes, and I've always said, for young quarterbacks, especially playing their first game, they don't know any better. So right now he had great success, but, if he's in a game where now he has to win the game, how will he respond? And so there's still questions, and we're all excited and all of a sudden think, sometimes we put a label on the player better than sliced bread, but with tons of butter on it. But sometimes the player goes backwards. So the important thing is take what they did last week and you move forward.
That is the great Jackie Sherrill. Coach Sherrill, thank you so much for making time. We'll talk to you in a week.
Yes, sir. And, gig 'em Aggies.
Gig 'em. Thank you so much, sir. Jackie Sherrill, the Boss Firearms Hotline. That interview is brought to you by Texas Best Home Loans and Braxton Sherrill. We'll hit a break here. We'll come back with Around Aggieland and some closing thoughts here on the Go Hour, presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. But as we've mentioned many times, the studio that Olin's in, not the studio I'm in, although we can call it an extension of it, is the Rollo Insurance Studio. Thanks to our good friends there at Rollo Insurance. They're the best insurance provider. They are the official insurance provider of TexAgs Live, and they've been doing it for such a long time. You can trust them. They're right here in College Station. We love what they do there at Rollo Insurance, and you need to check them out wherever you're at, because their headquarters is on Highway 6, but they got offices all over the great state of Texas, 60 offices in Texas, all right, and a couple of those. You got the Houston office, you got the North Texas office, the East Texas office, Central Texas, Austin, West Texas, and everything in between. Homeowner insurance, farmers insurance, ranchers insurance, hobby farmers, you name it. It is what they do there at Rollo Insurance. Call them up, 888-44-ROLLO, or go to rolloinsurance.com. That's 888-44-ROLLO, or go to rolloinsurance.com. Back on TexAgs Live, little Zach Bryan for you in the background. Appreciate Nick actually adding him to the playlist. This is about time. We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers on the Rollo Insurance Studio. I believe in a moment we're going to do Around Aggieland. OB, just what do you think the temperature is, Aggie fans, right now? How do you feel like it is after a win against a bad Florida team?
Oh, I think Aggie fans are pretty smart. I think they're knowledgeable. I think they're probably coming in saying, if 100-degree temperature, like you had the other day, means that you're completely sold and you think you're championship caliber material, they're probably at 90 degrees.
I think 90 is okay. Hey, every SEC win is good. Like, Texas is happy. Well, first off, they're the number one team in the country. They beat UTSA, right, with their backup quarterback. Does that automatically make them the number one team in the country? And because the way Georgia struggled a little bit with Kentucky, look, you're allowed to celebrate victories however they come because we know how hard they are to come. So I'm happy with the way things are trending. Around Aggieland time now, presented by Norman G. State Bank. Norman G. State Bank, rock solid banking. The website is normanggstatebank.com. And with that, we have Kay Naegeli.
I wish I could hear you, David, but I can't, so I'm going on the fly here. Yeah, let's get to it. So football finally ended its road skid with a 33-20 win at Florida over the weekend behind a total offense of number of 488 yards. Marcel Reed led the charge. Just to offer some notables up, Texas A&M rushed for 310 yards. That is the first time to rush for 300-plus yards in consecutive games since 2012. I know we all love that year, when the Aggies totaled 352 at Auburn and 361 at Mississippi State. Also on the ground, the Aggie defense limited Florida to just 52. Believe that was like negative something around half, so just absolutely dominating on the ground. And then last but not least, A&M showed its explosive, recording 10 rushes of 10-plus yards and then completing 5 passes of 15. The Aggies, Mike Elko's Aggies, will take on Bowling Green this Saturday. That will be at 6:30 back at Kyle Field. So hope to have a good weekend there. Volleyball, let's talk about it, went 3-0 in the Texas A&M Invitational following the sweep of Louisiana. They are now 7-0. They are the only undefeated SEC team remaining. So that's super excited for Morrison's second-year program. They will now head to Northern Iowa on Thursday at 6 p.m., so make sure to watch for them. And unfortunately, soccer dropped its final non-conference contest with a 6-0 loss to UConn. That was on Saturday afternoon. They will now enter SEC play. They will take on the Missouri Tigers at Columbia. That is on Thursday at 7 p.m. And then last but not least, cross country, both the men's and women's team took second in the Texas A&M Invitational on Friday morning. With that, David, I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you, KK. Appreciate you. Let's listen to a text message or two as we got about a minute left before we hit a break. Luke Evangelist at the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Luke?
Yeah, Jim and Temple texted in, as dominant as the Florida game was for A&M, overall, I can do without ever seeing a 3-man rush again from our D-line. And at the end of the second half, no pressure on the QB then, allowing them to go nickel and dime down the field and scoring the third touchdown. I want to see our defense in a 4-man minimum front, as always, and our D-line to be more like the 85 Bears.
All right. OB, we got to hit a break here, but I understand, but I even think Coach Elko said they got to manage it better. Thank you very much. We will come back with Tom Hart and then Billy Liucci. It's TexAgs Live. And we are back here on TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner Jewelers in the Rollo Insurance Studio. Well, I'm at my home studio. The moment didn't even have time to set up an actual studio. Let's go to the Boss Firearms Hotline. That's where we find Tom Hart. Tom, good morning, buddy.
Good morning. How's everything in Aggieland today?
Aggieland, well, outside of me, because I think I got the flu or something.
Oh no!
On my way to Gainesville. By the way, I've never gotten sick that I can remember on a flight, but the ear pressure that I had on the way down, I thought my head was going to. It was the worst experience I've not in my life, but it was up there.
Yeah. So you couldn't release it. So you tried all these random tricks, and you're like, "What the heck's going on with my head?" Yeah,
I thought it was going to blow up. It was terrible.
I had a buddy, not to gross you out, but I had a buddy on a cross-country flight one time, and he had earphones in, and he started to feel more and more pressure. Didn't know what it was, and his eardrum burst on the flight. So I said, "Can you describe that pain?" And he said, "Yeah, ice pick into the side of your head." And he was only like an hour into the flight. So then he had to just deal with it for another 3 hours. It's always been worse. I'm sorry you had that experience, but let's count our blessings, right?
Yeah. Hey, A&M went on the road, buddy, and they hadn't done that in forever. And I know some people don't think it was a beatdown. That was a beatdown. I don't care if it was a 13-point win to score. That was a beatdown from beginning to end.
That's how I saw it. I saw it as a beatdown. And I just think so many things went right for A&M. I can't help sometimes but look at it, big picture from a Florida perspective. I mean, I was told that Napier was going to be done even before that game. And then the results of which, the mood around there, just not pretty on their end. But I think that the ability for the offense to move the ball, to turn to the run game. I know there are a couple missed field goals, so I don't need to get into the minutia, but one punt the entire game. Come on, man. Like that's dominating. That is going out and dominating a conference opponent, which is what, A&M was capable of doing, and they did it. What did you see? I have two questions for you. Number one, what did you see from Florida's quarterback situation? And number two, were you nervous at all about Wigman not going, once you found out he wasn't going to play?
Yeah, I was worried. I can believe in a quarterback, and I do believe in Marcel Reed. I actually believe in Jalen Henderson to get the job done. But it's your starting quarterback, right? Like it's a guy that it's weird because with Connor, Tom, the opinions have gone like to the other side, from everybody thinking he is a top 5 quarterback to like Marcel Reed should start every game the rest of the way. It's just it's SEC fandom. I get it. And I know when you have more than one quarterback, you don't have any quarterback is the line, right?
I think that's changed. I think that is thrown into the wind anymore. You have to have two, but I didn't want to interrupt.
All good.
And I think two people have convinced me of this. When I was at Kentucky a couple of weeks ago, Mark Stoops talked about playing 2, maybe 3 quarterbacks over the course of the season. And he said, I will not let happen to me what happened to me a couple of years ago, which is you have a number 1 guy and he gets hurt. And then the gap between 1 and 2 is really like going from 1 to like a 4th string guy because of all the quarterback movement these days. So then I'm at Tennessee this weekend, and listen, they weren't going to make the playoff anyway because South Carolina a couple of years ago beat them down before Hendon Hooker tore his ACL. But the gap between Hendon Hooker and Joe Milton wasn't, 1 to 2. It was that same thing. And so I think you have to have this situation amplifies it. Certainly what Texas is sitting in right now, being able to hand it to Arch when you have maybe the number 1 quarterback coming up the board, that is an incredible luxury. And if you can build it that way, and it takes special circumstances, then you have this security blanket that not everybody has, which I think is huge.
Well, I also think too, like, if you don't have one of the best quarterbacks in college football, you need a quarterback that's not going to make mistakes, right?
Yes.
But with that, you need to control the line of scrimmage. And that's the one thing we hadn't seen from A&M in a few years, at least on the offensive line side of things. I feel like with this defensive line, even though the numbers aren't what I think we all expected at this point, we know what they have on the defensive line. The offensive line has been pushing some fools.
Yeah. Well, so it leads me to the other part of that is not only does A&M have two quarterbacks right now. And by the way, I love Marcel's answer at the end of the game. As broadcasters, anytime we go into meetings, a very common question, especially for a young quarterback, is when did you learn you could handle this? Or a guy who turns into a superstar, what was the moment where you realized what your potential was? And 99% of the time, it's a dumb question because it's an accumulation of snaps and reps and experiences and game times. And he's like, no, first quarter, full progression read. I get through all of my progressions, made the pass, and I'm thinking to myself, I can do this. I can do this at this level in this league. And I think that's an incredible jolt of confidence, even before going in for the lightning delay, to know, like, okay, I've got this. This is possible now. But it gets me back to another point, and you tell me where I'm mistaken here, but even though he had that full progression read, the run game, and that 33-yard run was amazing. Are they drastically different stylistically? Because the little bits that I saw would suggest that, just to be very basic, you have a throwing quarterback and you have a running quarterback. I know it's not as simple as that, but that also may have a great impact on the effectiveness of the offensive line.
Look, the offense looked very efficient with Marcel out there. I think I'm going to give some grace to Connor to get fully healthy, and now a different injury, unfortunately. But Connor can run. Connor's an athlete. He's not Marcel Reed, right? Like Marcel Reed is just a different level of athlete. But Connor's a quarterback who can run. Marcel Reed is a quarterback that can run and he can throw, it looks like, right? So I say embrace what you have. And as Colin Klein gets more comfortable with these players, I think we're going to see more of that, regardless if it's Marcel out there or Connor's out there. And the reason I'm hesitant on any quarterback is the fact that we jumped to conclusions based on a couple of the games, and we did it with Connor, right? Like Connor was amazing, and until he wasn't. The one game against Notre Dame, which is the one that I point at. I don't point at the Auburn game myself. So I just say, if the other parts are taking care of itself, let your quarterback amplify what you do.
So one of the things we talked about going into that game was that from Florida's perspective, I felt like Mertz was more solid and probably more efficient, and Lagway gave him a chance of more explosive plays. I know that they really didn't have any, but watching all the snaps and being there in person, is that what you saw? Like, where did they stand in their quarterback situation, in your opinion?
Well, I think Lagway is just a young quarterback trying to learn, SEC speed and defenses, and you got a coach in Coach Elko and Jay Bateman. They're going to confuse a young quarterback. What I think we saw was kind of what I expected: a quarterback in Mertz that is going to be. He's not going to make too many mistakes, but when he makes a mistake, it'll hurt because we know he had the propensity of throwing interceptions, at least before he got to Florida. And you saw a quarterback in Lagway that showed a lot of potential, but also hadn't been on that stage just yet. And it takes time. So I don't know what's going to happen with Billy, because I thought by now he'd be fired, honestly. But I think the fact that A&M didn't step on their necks at the end of that game might have saved Billy's job for a week.
When you say by now, you meant by Monday morning at 9:00 Central?
The way the game was trending, when it was 33-7, I think it was the score, whatever the score was. There was at one point 26-7, whatever. I was like, this dude ain't making it till Monday. Like, I did not think. And then, I don't want to say they made it interesting, but a 13-point loss in an SEC, that's a beatdown, but it's still manageable. I'm like, well, maybe he showed enough. The fact that Graham Mertz actually started completing some passes in the second half and looked kind of good, maybe he saved his gig. I don't know the Florida environment. I don't know the Board of Regents, the donors. But I thought if A&M was able to do what I thought they could do, that he may not make it through. And he did. At least he's there today.
I don't know anymore, and we'll see how this plays out going forward, but I don't know anymore that there's a huge advantage to firing a coach midseason with a 12-team playoff, because obviously your first goal, if you're a Florida-type program, is to aim for a coach who has a playoff caliber team. So if you aim for one and he just misses, yeah, you can get a guy before he goes to coach his team in the Gator Bowl. That's fine. But otherwise, they're not playing until December 20th at the earliest. You're really putting yourself behind the 8 ball. And what happens in those first couple of rounds of the playoffs may impact whether or not a coach is more willing to leave. Like, for example, there's a difference. Let's use Kiffin, for example. He had a really elite team last year in many ways, but when they went up against Georgia and got shellacked, he realized that he bumped his head on a ceiling given how they had built the roster at that point. You may have another coach that is a premier coach, gets his team in the playoff, thinks they have something great, and then they bump their head against a real or perceived ceiling, and they're more likely to listen to a Florida because I can't reach the ultimate goal at school X. So I think the timing of it's going to be fascinating. Do you throw everything into disarray and chaos on, September 16th? Or do you bide your time? Do you think, maybe we may have decided, but we're not going to tell anybody. Let's kind of push our way through the season and then tackle all this on the back end. I think it's athletic directors, presidents, board of governors, all those people, they're going to have a lot to think about in that regard going forward.
Tom, so I was preparing for this interview. I was looking at Tennessee because I know you're at their game, and I was like, they haven't given up an offensive touchdown all season long, and the one touchdown they gave up was an 89-yard pick six from NC State, which meant their offense was about to score again because they were on the 9-yard line or the 11-yard line. So I say all that to you, like, how good is Tennessee?
They're really, 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 really good. Iamaleava, the quarterback, is Josh Heupel throws around compliments like man covers, and just the tone of his voice and the twinkle in his eye when he talked about him through that point in the season. He had thrown a couple picks. One, he got hit and went flying wildly against NC State. Another one where, Heupel was telling us that the pass was actually perfect. The receiver throttled down on his route, and so the DB was there instead of the receiver. But he said he hasn't misthrown a ball all year to that point. And he wasn't perfect, even though they scored on like every possession and dropped a 70 burger on Saturday night. But what makes them elite, in my opinion, is that they're incredibly deep at wide receiver. Iamaleava is a first-rate quarterback. I think that's known. Dylan Sampson may be the best running back in the SEC. We'll see what happens when they face a little bit stiffer competition. But they have so much depth on the defensive side of the ball. And I think that's something I overlooked with them in the offseason. I mean, they run D-line after D-line after D-line. They play 12 guys. I mean, they go incredibly deep. That keeps the frontline guys fresh for the end of the game. And I think that's what's going to be a difference maker for them, especially in the SEC when you start banging heads on the line of scrimmage, is to have elite guys that you can roll in the fourth quarter, and they've only played 12 snaps to that point. I mean, that is an incredible advantage that I don't know very many people have in college football at all, let alone in the SEC.
Talking to Tom Hart here on the Boss Firearms Hotline. Tom, how does Kentucky look terrible one week and somewhat capable against a Georgia team the next week?
I don't know. There's no explanation for it. I mean, you could do a deep dive and say, well, hey, Beamer's in Stoops' head. Beamer's got his number. And I think that's 4 straight wins or 3 straight wins that Shane has against him head-to-head. Kentucky has been a program over the last couple of years that I feel like had this kind of, I forget the phrase that was used locally. It's like this unearned confidence. And there's a difference between having swagger and being confident. And like, hold on a second. You've lost 8 of your last 10 SEC home games. Why are you so confident that you guys have the world in the palm of your hand? The results say otherwise. I think the ability to shorten that game, and they were on the same time we were, but to shorten the game, to make it low scoring, Carson Beck did not look like an elite quarterback. But what Georgia does, and this is what I think makes Kirby's teams elite, a couple of years ago, they did the same thing to Missouri. They get caught in a close game on the road, and they know how to take care of business, and they just turn into bulldozers and they say, all right, you punted the ball away on 4th and 8 with the chance to, go for it. We're going to make you pay, and we're going to finish this thing out. And to me, that says a little bit more about Georgia. But I think to answer your question, it also speaks to college football as a whole. I mean, the wild inconsistencies from performance week after week from just about everybody. And so to me, it suggests that we're in for a roller coaster ride of a season. If Kentucky can have that kind of up and down and play the number one team in the country that well, then surely there are more upsets to happen over the course of the season that will throw this playoff thing into chaos. And at some other point, I'll talk to you about it, but I dropped by Grapevine last week and did the mock selection for a 12-team playoff with Ward Manuel, the chair, and those guys. And it was fascinating. I think people's eyes there's going to be some stuff that pops with this 12-team playoff that we haven't really thought of yet. And then once you see it come to fruition, it's going to be jarring at times.
I want to follow that up here soon. Let me ask you about Mizzou before we hit a break here, because A&M at some point is going to play Mizzou here in a couple weeks, 3 weeks. And I think it's more about what Bill O'Brien's doing at Boston College that's impressive to me. Like, I've had my hesitation with OB, but that guy can coach some football. That was a tight game.
Yes, very, very close game. And to your point, and I think I can't help but think about like what's going on with Deshaun Watson, right? And what he was at Houston and how Bill manipulated that offense to get him comfortable to do what he wanted to do. And you tell me if I'm off there, but like Deshaun obviously has limitations in his game. And Bill was able to find a way to make him an impactful NFL quarterback. BC's quarterback currently is not, the dude's not elite. He doesn't have I haven't seen a highly accurate arm. So what did he do? He ran all over Florida State. Like, Bill put him in positions to make it happen. And I was talking to somebody this weekend who used to be at BC. They thought they were going to get Bill O'Brien a couple coaching hires ago when he was still with the Texans. Like, that draw was enough that he gave him 24 hours that he considered leaving the Texans to take that job. I hadn't heard that before. I found that really interesting. I think he's a perfect, like that school is a perfect fit for him as a head coach, and he seems really comfortable and happy there.
Yeah, he again, I struggle with that because I feel like he mismanaged the Texans, and there was he's not a nice guy in a work environment. Sure. From everybody that knows him well would say, like, they were walking always on eggshells. So there's that aspect of it. But the guy can coach offense. I mean, he's a guy that Tom Brady has mentioned many times, and Tom Brady was already a Hall of Famer when Bill O'Brien got to him. And Tom speaks so highly about O'Brien. So to me, and by the way, how cool is it going to be in a few weeks if both Missouri and A&M is able to take care of business? And there's a big if, because as we mentioned with Kentucky, you never know in this world of college football.
Is that game time, that window is already guaranteed at 11 a.m. start? Is that right?
I saw that. Yeah. 11 a.m. game, which is an advantage for Missouri.
Yeah. It's an interesting, the new scheduling philosophy. I think we're going to see some unintended consequences where teams are better and matchups are better than we thought. That probably should be an afternoon or a night game if they take care of business. Missouri wasn't, I think they're better than what they showed against Boston College. Brady Cook gave them elite quarterback play last year, so this year. Ground game, okay, not where it was last year. But they have wide receivers that can break the game open, and they go to them in ways and get them the ball in space that they can hit a quick strike almost at any time. And they had enough key plays against Boston College to pull that thing out.
Tom, great work as always, buddy. Talk to you next week.
All right. Hope you feel better.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you. Tom Hart there on the Boss Firearms Hotline, Aggieland's premier gun and accessory shop. They've got all you need to build your next firearm. Check them out at bossfirearms.com. When we come back, I believe we'll have Billy Liucci in studio. Right now, Milliken Reserve time. Farm to table community in College Station. They got homes, they got trails, they got wide open spaces, and a mission to build a healthy community around nature. And they've done so by treading lightly on the beautiful limb that you can find Milliken Reserve on. They've created a sanctuary for family, for nature, and for community. They're dedicated to that conservation of a healthy community, and they've got 2,600 acres of open space, 30 miles of trails. They got farms, they got homes, and they have an extensive network of trails throughout a wooded landscape. They're committed to maintaining that natural habitat, and you will see all the beautiful animals that you want to see there. Milliken Reserve provides a natural setting for people to connect and come together where you can go hiking, biking, canoeing, do all the outdoor activities that you want to do at one place and have a blast with your family doing so. It is Milliken Reserve. Check out the website, millikenreserve.com. That is millikenreserve.com. All right, we're back in on TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. Quickly, want to talk about our friends at Heritage Films. That's Chance McClain's company. They make documentary films about families, family businesses, family ranches. It's a cool thing to do. If you haven't considered it, and if you heard me talk about it, just for a moment, consider your family on the big screen, right? Like at your house on your 50-inch TV with your father talking about how he met your mother, how your grandfather fought in the war, whatever the story may be that makes your family unique, because we all have a unique story. Let Chance McClain and his staff tell that story for you. And I know you're going to love it. It's going to be a real cool thing for your entire family to do together, because when you watch it together and then generations after get to watch it, they'll get to find out the whole family story. And he does it at a first-class Netflix, BBC-style documentary. It's yourheritagefilm.com. yourheritagefilm.com, 713-893-8341, 713-893-8341 is Heritage Films. Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. I know my buddy Luke Evangelist always has a smile on his face, is there. Luke, you got some text messages or something to offer as we wait for Billy to get to studio?
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a couple text messages for you. One that I obviously love, it's from Trevor. The way the Maroon Goons played was reminiscent of 2020, where the O-line imposed their will on defenses. I love that. The defense knew it was coming, and they still could not stop it. Demoralizing for defenses when that happens.
I want to take everybody back. Look, I'm not predicting anything right here. It is a talk show where we take things in certain directions, and we just kind of flesh out our thinkings. So let's just, for a moment, if that continues to be the case, and Luke, you can help me with this. Let's say that the offensive line continues to dominate, and we start getting a team that plays the way we saw against Florida against everybody, okay? Let's just say against Bowling Green, against Arkansas, and then you get the Missouri game. And what is the temperature going to be in the room if this is the way A&M is going to play the remainder of the season? Because I want to take you all back to how we felt after the Notre Dame game when things were so, fresh and new. How are we going to feel if what we saw against Florida is a sign of things to come? Luke, quickly.
I think it's going to be exciting for a lot of people. I think the talk for the last couple of years is, what if the offensive line did this, or what if the line play could smooth out maybe some issues at quarterback, some issues at receiver. I think a great offensive line, I'm not saying they're great, but I think this is a significant improvement from where they were. A really good offensive line helps hide some problems on an offense that in the last couple of years were being highlighted and shown every single week. So, I mean, you look at the numbers of rushing for 300 yards in back-to-back games. Bowling Green has given up, I think, 250 to Penn State and also 180 to Fordham. And so you're looking for A&M to hopefully run for 300 yards again, which OB and I were just talking about it. We don't know the last time A&M has run for over 300 yards in 3 games in a row.
Yeah, if you're able to do that, phenomenal. You know what we should do, since Billy is just miking up? Maybe I hit an early break, because it's almost break time. And Billy gets his thoughts going, it'll be for a while. So let's hit a break. We'll come back with Billy. I don't know. Nick's face made me feel like, no, David, not a good idea. Keep going. Which one? Don't. We're going to hit a break. All right. We're going to hit a break here. We'll come back with the Billy Liucci as we break down more of this A&M victory over Florida and start looking ahead at Bowling Green. Right now, though, if you're looking for a reason to move back to Aggieland, the Association of Former Students, they've got your back. That's what they do. They hire Aggies. They hire people who want to live in this community. I mean, if you want to work for an awesome, place, if you want to work for great people, with great people, supporting the Aggie network, then you want to work for the Association of Former Students. They always have positions open in fundraising, former student programs, potentially marketing, you name it. They are the premier alumni association and the oldest organization supporting A&M in support of that Aggie network. Don't miss opportunities to help out with Aggie Howdy Socials, Aggie Ring Day, class reunions, Aggie Muster. Join a team that exemplifies those Aggie core values of excellence, integrity, leadership, loyalty, respect, selfless service, all in support of that worldwide Aggie network. So if you're interested in joining a team or sharing with someone who would be a great fit, please visit tx.ag/association jobs to apply and get more information on each position. It's the Association of Former Students. And we are back here on TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers in the Rollo Insurance Studio, and that's where we find Billy Liucci. Billy, good morning, buddy.
I didn't know you were back. I didn't know you were back so soon. How are you?
I'm okay, buddy. How are you?
Let me know if you can hear me.
I hear you great. You sound
Perfect.
fantastic.
What's up?
Hey, I don't know. I was thinking about we could talk a little Aggie football this morning, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course. It's a feel-good Monday like it was a feel-good Sunday.
Yes,
in
sir.
Aggieland.
The score to me was not indicative of how much of a beatdown that game was. I know that Florida put some points up at the end, and A&M missed a couple field goals, but I still think that was a thorough kicking.
Yeah, it was. It was as good. It was about as. Look, A&M's played some pretty atrocious teams on, in some of these SEC road games over the years. I can think of some of those really, really brutal. Hang on, which camera are we looking at here? This is weird. Okay, I can think of some of these brutal games up at like some really bad South Carolina teams over the years. They've gone away and played some terrible Arkansas teams. They're going to go 1-11, 2-10, the Chad Morris era. And they won a lot of those. That Missouri team they played, which and didn't even realize, it's Connor Bazelak that they'll be playing this weekend, who was, as Evangelist reminded me, the last time A&M had won a road game was against him and Mizzou. That was a horrifically bad Missouri team. I don't think this Florida team rates, I can think of some teams they lost during this road losing streak. A couple of Mississippi State squads, noticeably worse than that Florida team actually is. Now, their record won't show it. Graham Mertz has had a successful career as a quarterback in the Big Ten, and you go look at what he did at Florida last year, he was not bad at all. There's plenty of talent on that roster. We know it. To the point that if Billy Napier gets fired in the next few weeks, I'm sure with Jay Bateman and Coach Chaos here on staff, it wouldn't surprise me at all if they looked at that Florida roster and thought there was a few guys they'd love to have at A&M. My point is, you didn't need to go in there and lose that football game. We all know that. I don't think it was as must-win for Mike Elko and A&M as it was for Billy Napier in Florida by any stretch. And I've seen Texas A&M along the way play much more, what would qualify more as must-win football games. But we all know, when you know. And we know that the Aggies needed a win in the Swamp on Saturday. They needed it for this season. They needed it for Mike Elko to start. I'm not making a bigger deal of it than we should, but to start to fast track this culture transition. And I don't mean bad attitudes, bad kids, bad locker room. I mean learning to win locker room. I mean, these guys have been actually really good in the department of buying in and handling their business, doing what they're asked to do. But it has to start paying off in the form of wins, and the sooner the better. But like the approach to get those wins. So when you lose to Notre Dame and your offense stinks and your only real test, and you play McNeese and you can kind of just roll through them, and then you go on the road where these guys in this locker room had really basically never won in an A&M uniform. And you go to a place like the Swamp that was really loud early, that was a desperate fan base, a desperate coach, a desperate team, and you just smack them around and put it to them. You're right. That score is in no way indicative of what happened. You did miss a couple field goals late. You gave up a couple touchdowns after the game was 33-7. That was about as thorough an ass-kicking as you're going to put on a competent program. I know right now they're on the verge of firing a coach, David, but that is a competent, I don't want to call them a national championship program right now, but they are historically like, that's about as this is like kind of like Tennessee when they're down, but to go in there and beat them like that, where it was over a little over 3 quarters, where it's 20-0. You go look at those halftime stats. That was dominant. And I'd love to see A&M continue some of these trends, winning on the road against teams that you can beat. Mississippi State, South Carolina, which will be tough. They look like a solid team, they believe right now. Mississippi State, South Carolina, Auburn, Arkansas, and Dallas. I'd love to see that lesson continue. 58-0 the last 2 weeks in the first half. 58-0 in the first half the last 2 games. They're coming out and doing what they need to do early, and then running the football, as you and Luke were talking about, 300 yards each of the last 2 games. They'd love to see that go to 3. All of these things that they're doing, I think they forced, 5 turnovers the last 2 games? 4, not counting the Hail Mary, so they're starting to get to the football. I love where it's trending. They've gotten noticeably better from week 1 to week 2 to week 3. And in the last 2 weeks, Dave, this football team has done exactly what Mike Elko could have hoped they could do. More than any of us would have hoped they could do, which is in McNeese State by drive 1, 35-0 at 38-0 at halftime. Go into the swamp, score on your first 2 possessions, have a double-digit lead 20-0 at halftime, squash their hope, come home a winner. The last 2 weeks, this football team's been really good. Now, you can go look at it, the tape, and we can watch it and know they're playing far from flawless football, but they've gotten better each of the last 2 weeks and done exactly what they needed to do.
All right, so let's take a look at it this way, Billy, too. You have injuries midweek, right? And you're going on the road, right? All those things that could have caused some derailment. And if A&M were to lose and the excuses started piling up, well, Marcel's making his first start in college football, is on the road in Gainesville. That's a hard place to play. You lose Tyreek Chappelle midweek. There's a lot of things you could have pointed at to make this game a lot closer than it was.
You lost your starting center, who was 2 weeks ago your backup center in game.
Yep.
And yeah, there was a lot, Dave. And look, Florida had a lot of injuries too, but it's a lot different when it happens at QB for a game like this. And Le'Veon Moss, Bryce Anderson with the pick 6, another big play by 26, Will Lee on that one. Amari Daniels, Cyrus Allen. You had some guys that stepped up, made some, Theo with the big touchdown. But the star of the game, without question, was Marcel Reed. And this is a guy, I think we really have to understand what he did and what he's done in 2 full games. I mean, Luke, you can put together his numbers. Do me a little favor for today's offense and review. His numbers against Oklahoma State and Florida would be pretty gaudy. And I think they would have been a lot bigger had this game, look, you had a rainstorm hit in the middle of play, and then he had a rainstorm hit in the middle of play, and then they were up 33-7. You basically, I think, I might be wrong here, but I think they ran the ball in like the last 16 or 18 plays of the game. So his numbers, I think, would have been kind of prolific on Saturday. And I think they would have thrown the ball all day against these guys. And 83 yards, he'd probably go for 100 because he probably would have dropped back and run even more had he been throwing more, because those scrambles were he's eating up a really big yardage. But to not know you were going to play, and let me tell you something about Marcel. Very competitive kid, coach's son, grew up around it, championship athlete in high school, multi-sport guy. That dude wants to play. He wants to win. But he also was going to be, not fine internally, but he was going to be, clap, sit on the sideline, be ready to play if they'd have told him that morning that Connor was going to play. That's the kind of kid he is. But he was ready all week. Probably had a pretty good idea that he would end up playing, but not positive. I don't know. I guess we'll find out today when he was told officially when he was playing, but it was very late in the game there, late in the game as far as game week, that he found out, maybe not even until he got to the stadium. And to go out there and that's your first career start, second game you've really ever played that mattered, in the swamp, in a game that you know your team had to have. And to go out and perform like that, and I think that 31-yard scramble on third down to start the game, that place was loud, it was rocking. I mean, one play right there, it reminded me, and people understand this, it reminded me of Johnny on that scramble against Alabama on that first drive, where he dropped back, saw a hole, took off, gained about 35 yards, stiff arm, Heisman the guy, and the whole stadium goes, oh man, like it's going to be one of those days. Different level, you're talking about the defending champs in Bryant-Denny, but the impact was kind of the same on the crowd. When he took off on that scramble, made a couple guys miss, picked up 30 yards, it took a lot of air out of the sails like that. It was kind of like, oh yeah, we're still Florida. We still stink. And he reminded them of that play 3. They get a 3 and out there. They get the ball, short field, early lead. Who knows? But Marcel played like that the whole game, and I think the team kind of fed off of that as well and rose up. I thought he was poised. I thought he was a leader. I thought he looked like he was having fun out there. So, yeah, that was a hell of a performance by him. Without question, player of the game there.
Billy, I don't want to overrate a victory on the road against Florida, but I feel like this is at least, it feels like this is a team I signed up for, right? Like when I thought of Coach Elko, a team that was going to dominate the line of scrimmage, a team that was going to beat the teams that they should beat. And it's just one test. You got Bowling Green, but I feel like this is the team I signed up for, and I expect more of this moving ahead.
Yeah, I do think, I heard you guys earlier, and I do think you have to be careful and not assume this is the team. Like, Florida is going to fire a coach. Everyone in that locker room knows their coach is fired. You know, their threshold for saying, here we go again, is probably lower than most. I do think their talent level is higher than some of these teams A&M's going to go out and play. And again, Graham Mertz is not, I'm just telling you guys, I know people they want to see Lagway, and I get it, but Graham Mertz is not a scrub quarterback. This is a dude that played a lot of football, so you were playing against a veteran quarterback. I thought Napier's big mistake, and I thought his big mistake was when the Aggies, Florida came out to start the third quarter, and they went right down the field in what? It was 7 plays, 75 yards, a nice 3-minute drive to open the quarter, right? Mertz hit that 15-yarder to Badger, and it was you're down 13 with basically a whole half to play at home. And then on the very next drive, Aggies hit that quick touchdown, right? So it's like, okay, we're right back where we started. You're down 19. Go ahead and put Mertz back in the game. He just led a 75. But your script, your plan was to go Lagway on the second possession of each half. And you had no feel that you had one good drive that whole game to that point. And it was led by your veteran quarterback that's played a ton, been in games where he's trailed. And you trot Lagway back out there. And I thought that was a colossal mistake. And they went 3 plays and punt. And then A&M took the ball. What did the Aggies do? The Aggies punted again. But I just thought that was a sign of a bad coach. And that, to me, is why Napier is where he is. And I thought you saw a lot of things Saturday on the A&M side that involved really good coaching, especially in terms of, like you said, how they weathered things, how calm this football team was on the road. But yet, they were having a lot of fun. And they were having fun from the outset, but they were also pretty fiercely competitive. So, yeah, if they bring that, David, on the road with them the rest of the year, I do think they'll win the games they're, quote-unquote, should win.
I guess what I mean by all that, Billy, is in years past, they don't win that game. and they won that game. So I guess that's my point, is that like we are seeing something different because these against inferior opponents, in my opinion, talent-wise, A&M found a way to lose the game. Mm-hmm. This one, they didn't even give it a chance to lose the game. They seized the game.
All I'm saying is it's one game. And I think the gap between what you should win and shouldn't, I don't think we need to overstate that when looking at a team like, say, like right now, like South Carolina. We all know what Arkansas brings, or Auburn. I don't think that gap is where you go, oh, they should. But I think when you come out and play like they did early, A&M is they are at a higher level still across the board than those teams. So like you're talking about, if you go play well from the start, you give yourself a chance to negate that home field advantage. It was a great learning experience for these guys in this football team. Like I said in the cover, they flew back a significantly better team than the one that left College Station for Gainesville on Friday, not on Thursday.
Well said, Billy. We'll hit a break here. We'll come back. Got to ask you about your boy. I'm not going to even say who it is. Your buddy. Bird Dog Time. They're an Aggie-owned, operated company creating access. Can't wait to go on my first hunt with them here in November. Think Airbnb for hunting, right? So if you're always like, I want to go with my friends somewhere, let Bird Dog take care of you. They make it transparent, easy to find a place to go for your hunt. They make it easy for landowners, and they'll help the landowners find more hunters, make more money for their ranches. They provide full service hunting experiences, and this can be for a corporate group if you think that's something you want to do for your company, for your friends group. They handle all the logistics. All you have to worry about is the fellowship, the good times with your buddies. And they're going to also elevate those experiences with add-ons like live music, helicopter hunting, cooking classes, and much, much more. They have over 60 ranches, that they have partnered with, and that's growing daily. They have a type of hunt for every kind of hunter, brand new hunters, seasoned hunters, you name it. They have ranch consulting service for landowners as well. They want to make memories hunting in the outdoors something for everyone, and they have it with birddogit.com. That's the website, birddogit.com. Go check it out. Live presented by David Gardner Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Billy, this will be quick because we have to hit a break here in a second. You think SEC Mike still thinks Vandy would beat A&M?
Hey, he wanted me on Friday, and I don't know if it was to kind of walk that one back, but he really didn't. It's like I said, look, if you're talking about on one specific Saturday when A&M couldn't throw for 100 yards and was a struggle, and they beat a team. But it was an outlandish statement, and it's going to prove to be more outlandish as the year goes on, really no matter how A&M does, because it's about Vandy, and what a terrible loss for them. And I actually am pulling for Clark Lee and Vandy over there, so that was a bad one, but not worse than what happened to Mississippi State to lose to Toledo like they did badly in Starkville. Not a good start at all for Jeff Lebby and company, 0-2, but with a brutal, devastating home loss to Toledo in there. So rough weekend at the bottom for the SEC and for SEC Mike.
Sometimes people just say things, and I'm here to be a protector of the truth, Billy. All right.
Yeah, that's always what I think of you as. They're calling you Tin Canyo today, by the way.
It's better now. I thought we fixed it.
Tin Canyo. Spelled like Cano, but Canyo. Put the beauty on top of it.
The beauty of me doing the show from home, Billy, is I can see all the behind-the-scenes things when Richard comes in there to show Nick a text message from you, because I can see it. I always know, Billy's making fun of me. I can see it.
That's not me. That was Dalton sent it in. He's apparently not working very hard up in Dallas this morning, and he's just listening to us and coming up with nicknames.
Who's this? Who's Dalton? I'm not sure. Timothy Dalton? And we're back here on TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Billy will be back in studio in a moment. I want to talk about one of our new sponsors, Southwood Valley Animal Hospital. I got to meet Justin recently and his wife, Dr. Laura, and both doctors, by the way, Dr. Justin and Dr. Laura. And they're great. They really have renovated a place that's been around here for 30 years. If you haven't been there, they've been around for 30 years. New ownership since 2022. Dr. Justin and Dr. Lauren took over a few years back, and they have a long history with A&M. They love this university. They went to school here, and they want to provide routine veterinary services, including wellness visits, sick emergency visits, and surgical care here in the Brazos Valley. They have the advanced medical care at a very affordable prices, and it's just a really good place to go. And your pets are part of your family. They are your family, right? You want to make sure you go somewhere that they're going to take care of you. And they're big listeners of TexAgs and subscribers, so you want to make sure that you go to a place that's going to hook you up, because they're hooking up students there. Right now, student discounts, if you tell them the code TexAgs12, $12 off that first visit for new clients. Let the receptionist know that you found out on TexAgs. The phone number, 979-693-9898. The website is southwoodvalleyvet.com. That is southwoodvalleyvet.com. All right, Billy, let's continue talking about some of the things we saw this weekend. Let's talk about the defense. We spent some time on Marcel and the offense. Let's talk a little bit about the defense. The pick six is obviously the big headline, but really that first half, Florida could not move the ball at all.
No, would they have 70? I think it's 2 weeks in a row where A&M had 70, or the A&M allowed like 70 yards essentially in the first half. So complete and total dominance. Florida made some adjustments. A large part of that too, though, would have been time of possession. When you look at Florida, and they literally had the ball 7 minutes in the first half. 7 minutes they possessed the football. That's team play right there. That's a combination of what A&M did offensively and the Aggies getting off the field quickly in that first half. Florida with 11 minutes time of possession in the third quarter. A&M, of course, hit that big play. They have a one-play drive. That tends to happen. But that first half, to only have the ball 7 minutes and have A&M driving up and down the field, and to the offense's credit, punching it in with points. 20 first half points, 10 on their first 2 possessions. That was really significant as well. But the defense, I thought, was really, really good in the first half. They were rock solid, outstanding against the run, really the entire game. I'm sure Elko will look at that and see a lot where if they were, I think the quarterbacks, even though A&M had a couple sacks, I'm sure they're looking at it thinking those guys had a little too much time, and maybe that rush could have been a little more ferocious up front. And had you been playing an offense in a passing game, particular how long Lagway was in there. I know he threw 13 passes, so he threw about the same number of passes as Mertz. I think had Florida played Mertz more in that football game, they'd actually had a better chance to win. And I know that was a big debate. And you could almost tell that maybe Napier believed it too, but you had to kind of see if Lagway could carry any of that on from the week before. But I don't think Florida wins with Mertz playing the whole game, but I just think it would have given them a better chance. He was clearly more comfortable in that football game than the young Lagway was. Nothing against Derek. That's, he's very limited action, about that much against Miami in the opener against a real team. He looked uncomfortable. He looked nervous. He took a couple sacks. But I think had they played, you're going to have to get a lot more pressure against even Arkansas, but especially Missouri in a few weeks when they come in here. Even as an experienced quarterback like Bazelak this week, you're going to have to get more pressure, and particularly with that 4-man rush to allow, if they're going to, there were guys too open for Florida at times in that game. And Mertz was able more more than Lagway to hit those guys in stride. They were open, too open on a couple touchdowns there. So I promise you there's some things they looked at defensively and didn't feel like that was an A-plus effort. It was an A-plus first half for sure. But there were some breakdowns that I'm sure Elko and Bateman are going to really not nitpick, because they're easy to look at on tape and go, look, this right here, this guy running through here, that's unacceptable. And I think you'll see them continue to get better, though, because, look, we thought they'd get more pressure, right, on these teams that decided to drop back and make the passing game a little more of their offense than Notre Dame was willing to, and certainly McNeese. You saw that on Saturday, and they got to the quarterbacks a couple times. They pressured them a couple more times. There were 3 picks. One, the Hail Mary, but 2 of those picks. So now in the last 2 games, your secondary has produced 4 interceptions. So that's an exciting development, because I know we keep saying we think the secondary is going to be significantly improved, and they've looked it through 3 games, even Saturday. But getting into that little ball hawk mode and that state of mind and that mentality, I think that's something that could be a strength of this football team as the year goes on, is in terms of forcing turnovers. They were unable to get that one game changer against Notre Dame. Part of it, I think, is because Notre Dame wouldn't drop back in long drops to put him in harm's way, Riley Leonard. But I also think moving forward here, you're going to see them get a lot more pressure.
Billy, if we were to nitpick a couple of things, if there were some things to nitpick.
Penalties.
The penalties and also missing field goals.
Yeah, I mean, Randy Bond, look, for starters, let's say this. That was a rough field. I mean, Napier was complaining about it himself after the game, but just with that rain in particular made it rough. But those are 2 40-yarders. I don't know if there was fault at all anywhere. He just missed the kick. But just special teams in general, you can't miss field goals. And I think Bond's really solid, but he's also had some significant misses in his career. So you like to see him keep hitting them, and you certainly like to see him hit from 40. I thought he got off to a really nice early start this year. That Notre Dame game, those were 2 very important early kicks, but they weren't easy ones, and he made them at home. So you want to see him hitting a higher percentage of his field goals on the road, obviously. That goes without saying. The ones he made, though, trying to see where I felt like one of them, a 31, and then that 48. I mean, so he hits that second field goal, and I'm going, man, he's really having a nice start to the season, right? And then to miss those 2, you got to see him bounce back this weekend at home. And
no doubt about that.
Penalties were bad. I mean, my problem with the penalties, like Dalton Brooks' penalty, just get your head up, young man, get your head up. I'm not that worried about that. You're trying to be a physical tackler and make a play. Like, those type penalties, holding, things like that, like Theo's was an effort penalty on the early touchdown that Jabri Barber had. Cost them 4 points. He made up for it on the next drive, took a big shot, hung in there, made a great touchdown catch. That was fun to see for Theo, who's becoming more and more of I believe he can become more of a weapon in this offense. You can tell now they've thrown to him twice in or outside the red zone. They did it at Notre Dame too. They got him in one-on-one, tried to go for a touchdown shot. So obviously they have some faith in his big body getting down the field and making a catch. But that holding penalty on him, or blocking, whatever they called it, that's an effort penalty. He's trying to block. I don't even know if I call that with the way the guy's momentum had taken him. But I can live with those. It's the pre-snap stuff. It's the unnecessary stuff. That's what bothers you. But regardless, too many penalties. You look at the number there. In a closer game, that'll come back and haunt you. 13 for 114 yards is outlandish. So you need to work on that.
I mean, not that you know the answer for Coach Elko, but how do teams work on that? Like,
I don't know.
What is
it's practice? I don't know. I mean, that sounds like a question you'd ask him and have him also say, I don't know, at the press conference. I don't know how you work. I mean, it's obviously practice and preparation and just in some if it's pre-snap type stuff, it's settling down in game, things like that. But
one thing I really liked was the play calling, Billy. I feel like Colin found his stride with his team this past weekend. I like the fact that they knew they had something. They kept on going with it.
Yeah, I know. I thought he had them in a little bit of a blender. When you can start running that well, and that to me is what's so encouraging, to run for 300-plus yards against Florida. I mean, I know they're down. They got real players on that defense. They got a 400-pounder in there. They got edge rushers that people think are future NFL guys. Shamar James will probably play at the next level at linebacker. They got dudes. And to line up and just run it straight down their throat and to run it every play of a 99-yard drive, you know what a message that is? You know what that does to an offensive line? Can't wait to talk to Seth and Steve about that. What that does to an offensive line and their mindset, that they say, we lined up and we went 100 with the length of the field and we just ran it on you. That, when you can do that and you're running the ball like that, as a play caller, what you can do in the passing game and for your quarterback, and I do, they took shots deep down the field. You heard Sean Porter talking about it after game one. We saw more of it against McNeese. I thought we saw more of it again on Saturday. Is that intermediate range? I'm oversimplifying, but that area like between the linebackers and the secondary, and it's, that's not, so a lot of times that's still in front of the linebackers these days, but that intermediate passing game, you saw them hit some big plays in that range too. They're creative around the line of scrimmage with what they do, throwing the ball and with the motion and stuff like that. Hitting the tight ends, you saw big completions to Theo and Trey Watson, who's had I feel like he's kind of good for a meaningful catch a week. I don't see why that can't turn into 2 or 3 meaningful catches a week and maybe 4 or 5 from the tight end position a game. So I think I love what Klein's the 3-game evolution. And look, I still want to say something. That was a rough first outing against Notre Dame. Connor had a very rough game, unexpected. It is not the norm for him. He had a rough outing from the start. It wasn't like as the game wore on, they were mentally getting to him. It was a rough night at the office for your quarterback. It was the first game in your new offense against that defense. And we're now 3 games in, and Notre Dame certainly hasn't played murderer's row since A&M, but they shut down the Aggies. Northern Illinois scored 16, and that was with a bust 85-yard touchdown completion to a back, and still scored 16. And I think they shut out Purdue, unless Purdue scored late. I think the score was like 66-0 or something last I saw. But that is an outstanding defense. It still is. Florida is not, okay? They've been carved up, and they play Miami, Samford, and A&M. They got carved up in both games. That would be the equivalent of the A&M offense scoring 1 touchdown against Notre Dame and Florida, where you're like, hey, this is all we got. I don't care how many points you scored against McNeese. I saw you score 1 touchdown against Florida and 1 against Notre Dame. Might be who you are. Florida's defense, probably who they are. They got shredded by Cam Ward in Miami. They got shredded by Marcel Reed in A&M. They got shredded by Shannon Dawson. They got shredded by Colin Klein. But it was nice. It's nice to see the continued kind of evolution. We saw more Jabri Barber. They keep trying to get the ball to Bussey. In different, I think you'll see more and more of that. I love where the offense is going if they can keep running the football. And I think that mentality of those O-linemen and those backs is such that they should only continue to get better. They're starting to play nasty football up there in the trenches. And they did it. A lot of times you looked up Saturday, you had 2 backups in there. Right, Dave? That's that depth.
Yeah.
They had 2 backups at center and then Deuce going in at right tackle. And I know that was a battle all through camp, but you really had the guy that started out as your 3rd string lineman. And by the way, for people that like to keep score, I've been telling you that Coley was a really good addition in the portal, and he was gonna push Naboo to start. And then in the last couple of weeks of fall camp, for those that like to pay attention, I was telling you, TJ Shanahan finished camp on a fast ascent. He was really coming on, and thank goodness that was the case because they needed him in the middle. I think if you go watch him, he put some really good stuff on tape Saturday.
Billy, we've talked about the running game, but in particular, can we talk just Le'Veon Moss and the kind of running we're seeing from him? The hard, strong look. All 3 backs look great, and obviously, if you throw in Marcel's running, it was incredible. That's why you had over 300 yards rushing. But just Le'Veon as your lead back, and the it looks like a 2-yard gain, and it turns into a 6-yard gain.
Le'Veon's he's a dude. There's no reason he shouldn't be an NFL running back, and I think he can be. I said it before the season. It's another guy I've been trying to explain, like the off-season progression for him. We talked about how Amari Daniels had a strong spring in camp, and don't miss on Amari Daniels. Like, the guy's going to be a key part of it. And then he goes 13 for 68, which is that's an Amari Daniels kind of game. Some tough runs there, 22-yard catch. So he sit there at almost 90 yards of offense for you on Saturday in his home state. But Le'Veon Moss, I think, can be an all-SEC back. I've said it. I still believe it. I think 3 games in, he's showing that. He ran for some tough yards against Notre Dame where those linebackers were really filling. There wasn't a lot of run room. He's physical. He ain't scared to take a hit or dish out punishment. And his vision's getting better and better. And I think the other thing is, like you said, you'll think you have him down, and he will fight for extra yards. And there was one of those plays, I think it was the first quarter, wasn't it? Where he, even the announcers, you thought he was down, and then he busted out. I think it might have been the 27-yard run here. He was on A&M's first or second drive. Where is it here? He had a 2-yard gain, 4-2, and then, it was on their second drive where he ripped off a 20-something yard run that I thought was really impressive. Yeah, there it is, 27. It was to start their second drive of the game. That could have been a no-gain, 2-yard gain or so, and Moss by himself busted that out, and that was on that 92-yard touchdown drive. So it's 3-0. You're trying to establish what's happening in the football game. You're coming off your own 8. You hand it to Moss, hoping to gain 4 or 5 yards and get ahead of the chains, and he goes for 27, takes you out, into good field position all of a sudden, one play in. He's capable of doing that, and he's capable of doing that multiple times in a game. Like I said, you look at the defenses they have coming up. I think Moss, you look at the next 4 games of Bowling Green, Arkansas, Missouri, Mississippi State, this offense has a real chance to get going. It really does. And I think, number 8 in particular has a real chance to get going and start having the kind of games you saw on Saturday.
On the other side, let's talk receivers, Billy. Right now, we're talking Caldwell Country Chevrolet, Highway 21 in Caldwell online, CaldwellCountryChevrolet.com. They have deals that change month to month on their website. But one thing I can tell you, you're going to get great customer service, great people, and great trade-in value. When you're looking for a vehicle, those are all questions you have to ask yourself. Obviously, you want to start off with the pricing, make sure the pricing's up to par. And then what are you going to get for your car? And also, can you trust these guys, right? If you have any problems with your car, if you need to have service done, can you trust them? And the answer is yes, yes, yes to all things Caldwell Country Chevrolet. That's what they do there. Complimentary pickup and delivery for their service customers. Free oil changes for life of the vehicle of your Caldwell Country Chevrolet vehicle, as long as you own that car. And that's what they do there at Caldwell Country Chevrolet. That's why they're the very best in the Brazos Valley and making sure they take care of their customers. It is an easy drive. We're talking 15 minutes to Edge of Bryan to the beginnings of Caldwell. Short conversation away, but you'll see the difference when you step on the lot and do business with the great people there at Caldwell Country Chevrolet. Highway 21 in Caldwell, online at caldwellcountrychevrolet.com. All right, we are back here on TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. I believe Luke Evangelist will give us a text message or two to help us get this segment started. Luke?
Yeah, let's start it off with a text message from Dermdoc, who said, he sat 2 rows behind our bench at the Swamp. The poise and confidence of the team was a very real thing from the start. And when Florida went down the field and scored to start the second half, I thought, here we go again. Then the wheel route to Cyrus Allen happened right in front of us, and I knew at that point that we would win. Had forgotten how much fun it was to travel home after an away win.
So, and I'm glad that was the text message that came through, because it does help set up the point that I wanted to bring up with Billy. I'll wait for his headphones to be on. But that's 2 weeks in a row we've seen big plays, right? We saw the big play against McNeese, right? And we saw the big play here against Florida with Cyrus Allen. Billy, when you talk about the receiving core and just what we've seen from them, like, there haven't been splashy numbers. In this game, they didn't have to pass the ball very much. It was all about establishing the ground game. But
that's awful. I'm calling you Tin Canyon, and I'm sneezing into the mic.
Well, they answered after a Florida touchdown with that big 73-yard touchdown pass.
Yes, they did.
Well, I wanted to talk about the wide receivers.
Well, I couldn't help it. I was having a sneezing fit, but I think maybe my mic was off, hopefully.
I didn't hear it.
Oh, the sneeze knocked it off. Here, I'm going to do this, okay, Nick? I'm going to talk like this. Is this better? I'm going to talk like this. These mics have been a problem since we moved over here. This is a hard one to do. The guys have an impossible job unless you're wearing a collared shirt. So, and then you have to button it up all the way. It's a setup thing. Yeah, the big play this week, what'd they have? I think Zane had the number. It was like 15 runs of 10 yards or more, or passes of 15 yards or more. I thought they did a great job. Again, down the field. And that throw, we talked about Le'Veon's run. We talked about Reed's run early. Reed had another long one later in the game. Daniels with a 22-yard catch. Theo's catch was from how long was that touchdown? It was 30-ish yards. 29 yards, right up the field there, right up the seam. I thought they did a great job just attacking all parts of the field. And when you can do that, then when teams have to cover all parts of the field, oftentimes you're going to find that that's kind of an impossible task, and you're going to get guys open in space. Moose caught one, a great catch, nice throw by Reed early, a terrific catch in stride. You hit guys in stride, they can keep running, they can make plays. They took a couple of deep shots that drew penalties. I loved it. Like, they were in attack mode, and a couple deep shots that were incomplete that drew penalties, so that was good too. But yeah, the Cyrus Allen, that was the two plays of the game. Obviously, you start looking at other ones for like, oh man, that was a massive momentum shift or momentum killer. But the touchdown pass to Cyrus and the touchdown on the pick six by Bryce were obviously the two back-breaking plays because of what they did to any hoped-for Florida momentum, and they produced 14 of your 33 points, both from long range. That just takes the air out of an opponent, especially a wounded opponent. Bryce's pick sent the fans to the exits. I'm not sure Cyrus's touchdown didn't send some of them to leave too. But Cyrus's TD certainly made it squash any hope Florida had of coming back when they cut it to 13. And a great play by Reed too. First of all, awesome design on that post with the wheel route behind it. I love that. And it's a wheel coming from a motion as well. So I think that's a really tough cover. Marcel did a great job I think it was second down. And I thought there was a pass play that was right there. Maybe it was the tight end. Somebody dragging that. Okay, throw that, not the drag guy, but it was somebody else. I think it was a tight end. Throw it to him. You might get the first. Or third and short. That's kind of the execute, like boom, throw. But he was patient, waited, saw that open up, took the deep shot. Higher risk, not high risk, because it was a great design. Higher risk, highest reward, and he took it. And I love that. And I think that's the kind of play, David, that in the past was more discouraged around here under Jimbo, would be take that short yards, keep the chains moving. But I think you like to see in this offense your quarterback give the big play a chance and see if they can hit it.
Yep. What do you think this week looks like for the quarterback room? Just still waiting to see Connor get healthy and I guess figure things out as you get closer to Bowling Green. That's the obvious answer.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, like Connor's. Here's what we don't know, and people can speculate, and unless Connor's sitting here talking about it, which he's not. I don't know his pain threshold. I don't know the level of pain that's causing. I do know that if Wigman didn't play and was willing to let a backup quarterback that he knows is talented come in and start an SEC game on the road, I know that he couldn't play because I know he'd have wanted to. A, to compete. He loves football. B, this is a guy that gave up baseball to play quarterback here at A&M. So he wanted to go. So that has to be pretty damn painful. At least it was throughout the week, last week, and on into Saturday. So I don't know how quickly that pain goes down enough where he feels comfortable going out there. And I hope he doesn't feel pressured by the way the game went Saturday, because the biggest thing is they need both of them all year. They need Connor back, and Connor needs to take care of himself and get that thing right. I haven't heard anything. I guess you never know, but it doesn't seem like a long-term thing. But it certainly doesn't seem like it would hurt for him to be able to rest that shoulder. And I think with just a little rest, he might get past that threshold where it's right and he can play. So it'll be interesting to hear Elko today talk about it. It'll be more interesting as we get later in the week in terms of Wigman's status. Now, is there a decision looming when he does get better? Yeah, whether that's this week or next. I think if it's this week, I think if he's fine to go, you go right back. I do, and I know people will disagree. I think you go into Connor. He's your starter. Marcel played really good on the road, but I just thought there was a different level of juice out there with Marcel. But you've got a body of work with Connor in one bad game. You know, that Notre Dame one, it was bad. It was also a much better defense. There's a tough decision here. There was a lot I liked what I saw from Marcel Reed. And it wasn't, I mean, he checked a ton of boxes for me in terms of what he was doing. I would have a hard time, not going with him. But I also understand, I saw it Saturday with Lagway and Mertz. The experience matters. Wigman is not some journeyman quarterback either. He's a guy that has shown star qualities. But he'd have to come out and play really well. I think Bowling Green, though, with the injury, what happens if Marcel goes out there and goes 5 touchdowns, plays smart football, and the offense goes up and down the field again? And then you got an SEC game coming up. So that's when I'd have a hard time sitting him. But either way, it's Mike Elko and Colin Klein's job, and I don't think it's an easy one right now, to make the right decision by what they think and keep both those guys so engaged that if they need to make an in-game move, whoever it is has been mentally checked in all week and is checked in on Saturday, because they're both good and they both can play great. We've seen it. We've seen Connor do it against top 5, top 10 opposition. We've seen Marcel do it against Florida and Oak State, but he's also done it in pretty spectacular fashion. Like, he's put up massive amounts of yards. He's put together highlight reel plays. He's a risk taker. So there's a lot to like in each guy, and I don't know if they'll have to make that decision this week or if it'll be in a couple weeks, but it'll be, I think, if I had to, I don't know what I would predict here because Elko's new to it. It's not like Connor's been Elko and Klein's quarterback and this is his 3rd year to be their quarterback. This is his 3rd game to be their quarterback. So it's not quite the same, but there was a reason over the course of time that they picked Connor. And it was based on what they saw and believed. It wasn't based on just vibes or feel. It was based on what they saw and believed over spring and throughout fall camp. So I think that's something important for people to remember when they're making this decision. I think it gets harder if Marcel goes out there this week and has some kind of monster game. Not that Bowling Green's a great defensive team, but it would just be 2 starts in a row where you go, man, this thing seems to have some real feel and momentum. But as of right now, I'm looking at its 2 games. One against a Florida defense that's been shredded, 2 out of 2. One against a Notre Dame defense that's been elite through 3 games. So I think it makes it a tough call personally.
All right, we'll hit a break. I want to talk to you about some other SEC schools on the other side. Right now, we're talking QC Kinetics. Did you know that you can have your own body's healing properties revitalize your achy joints? So if you have a lot of injury issues out there, you want to have real lasting relief, and that's what you can have with QC Kinetics. I'm talking about advanced regenerative medicine there at QC Kinetics. If you're tired of arthritic pain in your knees, your hips, your back, or your shoulders, this is something you need to check out and start living life once again the way you want to live life, the way you used to live life. People are talking about regenerative medicine, and local medical professionals here in the Brazos Valley at QC Kinetics are going to help you. They're experts in that area. People here in town are raving about what they're doing there at QC Kinetics. You can enhance your joints, improve your mobility, and get back to doing the stuff that you love to do. You'll do this without any pain. That's what they tell you. That's what they do for you. No drugs, no surgery, no downtime. Under the medical leadership of Dr. Mitchell Shinecup, QC Kinetics is the nation's leader in this exciting breakthrough using cellular therapies. They've got tens of thousands of satisfied patients, and the consultation is absolutely free. So call right now, take action, and get back to living the life that you love to do. Call QC Kinetics. They are the ones to take care of you. 979-452-6000. QC Kinetics, 979-452-6000. That is 979-452-6000. TexAgs Live. We are presented by David Gardner's Jewelers in the Rollo Insurance Studio. Appreciate everybody listening in this morning. Billy, let's take a look at some of the other games in the SEC. It's not always chaos for Georgia when they win a tight game. That's what great teams find a way to do. But that was an interesting score, especially when they were down for such a while against Kentucky.
They've had some weird scares in the Kirby Smart era. I mean, famously, a few years ago, might have been 5 years ago or so, they lost at home, I think it was, to South Carolina, where Fromm was throwing all the picks in the rain. They lost that game. They've had, if I'm not mistaken, I know they've had some struggles with Kentucky in recent seasons. I believe in the last couple of years, there's been more than one struggle against Missouri. So weird within their division, even though there's not divisions anymore, weird struggles in those particular matchups. I would almost compare it to how year in and year out it seemed like A&M, with one glaring exception, would give Bama more issues than other teams would, even though the Aggies only won 2. They led at Bryant-Denny at halftime. They went out a couple weeks after losing to App State and took them down to the final play when no one expected it. There's been a lot but A&M's talent level was much, even though it's Bama, was closer to Bama's than I think when you're talking about Kentucky and particularly Missouri against Georgia. But they've had those struggles. They do always seem to find a way to win. But I will say, Saturday night felt a little different. Kentucky and South Carolina have to be feeling the worst today. Maybe not as bad as Billy Napier. But Kentucky, had they called that a pick six, they probably win that football game. Where it was very hard to tell when he just kind of throws the ball up trying to catch it, the Georgia receiver. And that was tough to tell. I think it was the right call that it was incomplete pass. But if it was like within an inch of Kentucky probably winning that football game. They'd have gone up, what was it, maybe 13-3 at that time. I think they would have, I don't know, 14-3, whatever they would have gone up. And then the other part of it was South Carolina with that. First of all, Sellers gets hurt. Second of all, that pick six. The quarterback getting hurt, I have a harder time with because every team, every fan of a team, everybody has to go through it. Like if Quinn Ewers misses a couple games, well, they got Arch Manning. Last year, Ewers missed a few games. They had Malik Murphy. Helped them win games. They weren't pretty, but they won games. A&M's gone through it, we know, a cajillion times. So the quarterback getting hurt, I don't feel bad for South Carolina in that regard. But that pick six ends the football game. LSU's done. It's pretty much game over at that point. It's about a 105-yard pick six. And they call a pretty ticky-tack block on the quarterback. It wasn't helmet to helmet. It was just a behind-the-play block. He kind of pulled up. He didn't waylay him. It's just a massive size difference. Nussmeier's not a big guy. The defensive lineman was. And for that call to change the outcome of a game, I have a problem with. But South Carolina and Kentucky both could have really shaken things up early in the SEC this year, and they both fell like literally one referee decision and 1 inch short. But it felt a little different, Nuño, because Georgia really had to scramble to pull that off. They really had to fight and claw against what I think is an average to bad Kentucky team. I think it's a real concern if you're Kirby Smart about how good is our offense really, because when you have to play teams, and if you count an SEC title game, I know they don't play them all, but when you see teams like Texas and Alabama and Ole Miss and Tennessee, and that's just in your conference, and then you see teams like USC and Ohio State, maybe Oregon if they really get it going, you're going to have to go through some really offensive-minded teams. and that won't be super easy. And by the way, my when I'm looking around the league this week too, boy, Oklahoma, you might have a real problem this weekend with Josh Heupel, who Bob Stoops fired 10 years ago to the day yesterday, going in there with the Vols. It's going to be a real problem. Heupel won a natty for you there. I think they're going to have a rough night in Norman against this Tennessee offense and football team because they seem to absolutely have it rolling right now.
And then now you have Texas as the number one team, at least in one of the polls, and they look good, man. They are a good team, but they are looking good.
They've played crap. Michigan's going to be a 4-loss team at least. Well, I think they'll lose to USC this weekend. If they do, I think you're looking at least a 4, if not a 5-loss Michigan team. You see Oregon and Ohio State also on that schedule. But they're crushing. They were clearly, they outclassed Michigan. They're crushing bad teams in Colorado State, who by the way got crushed by Colorado, and UTSA, who got smashed by Texas State. So remember that. That's going to be a 4 or 5-loss Michigan team. But you watch football and you go, man, they're really hard to defend. At worst, they have a really good defense. I don't know if it's going to be elite. But look at their schedule. Look who they're playing. They got ULM. Then I believe it's Mississippi State after that. Okay, then they have the tough road to hoe with OU and Georgia. But outside of that, like they got Mississippi State, rancid. They got Kentucky, probably rancid. I know what they just did with Georgia, but away from home, certainly. They're a week removed from losing 31-6 to South Carolina. They get Kentucky at home. They go to Vandy. They go to Arkansas, who's way down the SEC list. And they get Florida at home, which probably will be an interim coach. So that SEC schedule, and Texas fans don't want to hear it. If I'm a Texas fan, I'm like embracing it. I'm going, that's fine. Give me the easiest SEC schedule in history, and I'm not going to apologize for it because I went to the big house. It's not my fault they suck. And give me the easiest SEC schedule because I'm going to have to get there. I'm going to have to go through the SEC title game, and I want to win the SEC championship so I can let Liucci and all the Aggies never hear the end of it. And then I'm going to have to deal with the playoffs, so I'll have to beat 3 such teams to win anything. So I'm okay with this schedule. If I'm Texas, I'm fully embracing it. I've said before, A&M's gotten a gift in terms of the schedule, not to quite the degree Texas has, but they've gotten one. Texas doesn't play Ole Miss, Tennessee, Bama, or Missouri, okay? A&M doesn't play Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, Ole Miss. They both got it pretty nice. So flipping that back to A&M, a few of those teams I mentioned, the Aggies play. They're at 24-25 right now. There's not national title aspirations. We're not going to mention playoffs until they win more than one road football game. They got a lot to do. But their path to having a good season is similar to what Texas is, their road to an SEC title or a playoff. So it's the two things are separate. You have to understand that. I do think they're deserving of the number 1 ranking this week. I'd probably still have them at 2. I have no quibble or qualms with them at number 1.
All right, let's hit a break. We'll come back with a short final segment right now. Lewis Engineering, a machine shop located in Marshall, Texas. They want to be your premier metal fabrication supplier. They've been around since 1961, and Lewis Engineering has supplied the Defense Department, aerospace, automotive, oil field industries with quality metal components. So Doug Lewis, he's an Aggie, class of 2004, 4th generation to own and operate Lewis Engineering. And they've got so many different types of services: CNC machining, stamping, assembling, welding, plating, painting, salt spray testing. Lewis Engineering is an ISO 9001 and an AS 9100 certified company. I hope I'm saying that right. Doug will call me if I'm not. They specialize in high volume production as well as to close to tolerance projects. They invite you to outsource machining to a company that many Fortune 500 companies have trusted for the last 63 years. Call Doug Lewis for a free quote right now, 903-938-6754. That is 903-938-6754, or find them online at lewisengineeringco.com. That's lewisengineeringco.com. All right, it's time to end the day with Double Dave's caller number 12, 979-693-1150. We'll hook you up with your choice of a dozen pepperoni rolls or a large one-topping pizza from Double Dave's. They've been serving Aggieland since 1984. They have that pizza, they have that world-famous pepperoni rolls, and reliable in-house delivery, bringing piping hot goodness straight to your door. Just click on doubledaves.com, and as a reminder, they are not open on Mondays. Billy, we got about 45 seconds to play with. Initial thoughts on Bowling Green as we head into the Louis show?
I'll save that. I don't know what you want me to do with an initial thought. We will discuss Nuño throughout the week, Bowling Green. I think it's a game that A&M needs to come out and continue to build momentum and play well. And if you do that, you'll win. If you don't, Bowling Green showed you a few weeks ago at Penn State, things can get interesting. You've seen A&M, like you said before, play down to their competition. It would be great to see them come out and play better than they did at Florida. Because if they do, they'll handle business and go into Arkansas with real momentum. So I think that's the goal in that one, is for them to just keep getting better as a team. And Bowling Green won't come in here and do what Toledo was able to do to Mississippi State, or what an App State was able to do to A&M, or things like that. I think the Aggies should handle business on Saturday.
Awesome stuff, Billy. Thank you very much. I'll be in studio tomorrow as long as things continue to trend in the right direction. Thanks so much for watching and listening. We will see you all mañana.